Well, here we are back for Lesson 12 in our CHS seminar videos. I'm showing a relief emoji here of me because in previous lessons we posted several payables bills that are unpaid, and we've talked about how you can look at the cash balance for each job and how many unpaid bills have been posted, and then how to do a draw request even before we pay those bills. So now we're ready to go and approve and select unpaid bills to pay and print checks for those because we have enough money. Then we will look at the check registers or list of checks and show again how even if you pay for more than one job on a check, CHS can still track cash by job. So let's get started. So here we are back on the main menu of CHS, and I want to add one more bill before we go to approve and select some bills to pay. So I'm going to do post new payables and charges from scratch. And the bill I want to go ahead and enter is paying the BOA credit card that we showed in previous videos where we were posting mostly to ProBuild, I think, and United Plumbing that we were paying by credit card. So I'm going to select that credit card vendor now. And we talked about how you set up credit card vendors, etc. So I'm going to post a quick bill. This is not job related. We already posted all the job costs and then marked them as paid by credit card. And what you can see here is we've got a credit card balance. And if we're holding a statement from the bank and we see this balance, we could be all thrilled and not even need to go reconcile it. But let's just pretend we're going to go reconcile it or look at it for a minute. So let's look at the credit card ledger. Notice that we got a credit card statement back on May 25th and we were reconciling things. And then we came along and made a payment for this amount, which actually, if you add all those up, they total to zero, believe me. So now we have a bunch of them that are not marked as reconciled. Let's put a statement date in here for 06/25/2021. Pretend that we've got the statement and we're looking at it, and basically we're all thrilled that we tie to them already because the credit card entries we made that aren't marked as checked tie. But if I just want to do a search for ones that are not on statement yet, I can do that, and you can see that those are totaling still to that credit card balance. So I could quickly go through and say this is on the credit card, this is on the credit card, this is on the credit card statement, I'm meaning to say, just to get that reconciled. And we know that we're reconciled, so we're not too worried about it. But what I wanted to show you real quickly, view bills paid by credit card. Let's just open them all. And let's just do a search. So let's just do paid date 05/27/2021. Everything paid on or after that marked as paid by credit card. And let's do a search. And we can see we have a total of records displayed that does tie to our credit card balance. So if we wanted some little report of that, we could have that so that we could see what jobs things have been posted to. Now we've been working on the N122 job in our previous videos, and you can see that we paid ProBuild by credit card on June 21st. We also had some others already entered as paid by credit card on May 27th, which was just a little bit after the date that we paid the last statement. And one of these is Smith John, United Plumbing Services, etc. So you can see that all kinds of jobs have already been marked as paid, and the cost code has been put here and marked as paid. So when we go ahead and pay the credit card itself for all of these charges, we don't need to do anything about a job. And that's what I really wanted to point out to you. So let's close this. Let's do post create quick bill again, and we're going to want to pay this whole balance, and the invoice number we said was 06/25/2021, and that's what I usually use for the invoice number because there's not usually one on a credit card statement. And we're going to pay this whole amount. Now remember, we did a draw request for N122, and those credit card charges were included in the draw request and the money we received, so we're not at all worried about that part. We've got the money for that for Loveman, etc. So let's continue. And you can see that things filled in for us, but what we want to do is change the date to the 6/25. And if they have a due date on it by the 10th of the next month or something, who knows. Now it has the amount we put in and everything else, and we could submit that and post it as unpaid to pay later so that it will show up in our list of unpaid payables. I wanted to show you something else about that. Is it forced the GL account for that one to be the credit card payable account. In other words, this is actually lowering the credit card payable account. And because this is set up as a credit card vendor, CHS won't let you change that number when you're actually paying the credit cards. And it also won't let you put a job on it. etc., so that you don't launch off and start trying to allocate it to jobs, since we already did that when we posted the charges. So let's close this and let's take a quick look at the owner review that I had opened. Remember, we collected enough money to be paying all of the bills, including the part to ProBuild for Loveman 2. Also, we can see that we're short for another demo, Loveman, not Loveman 2. We're short money, and we also know we haven't done the draw request for that yet. So that's important to sort of remember as we take a look at the unpaid payables that we are going to select to pay in a batch of checks here after we talk about it for a bit. So I, on the home menu, clicked Unpaid Payables and then Unpaid Payables, Edit, Delete. And we are on the Unpaid Payables menu. So let's open all unpaid payables. And first of all, if we slide down, we should see BOA-Visa showing up here for the amount that we're going to pay them. And what I'd like you to see is there's OK1s and OK2s going on here. We went and we were approving bills for Loveman 2 out in the field. Now notice that the owner has come along and done OK2 ones. Maybe the owner is reviewing and can see that these that weren't check marked were ones that the field would not have seen it because they're to the zero cost code for deducting liability insurance. But the owner has come along and check marked all of these as OK to pay after reviewing various things, which I'm going to show you here. But I want you to just see those check marks. I already played like I was the owner in here, check marking and approving things to pay. I'd like you to see here on Clayton, neither the field nor the big boss has checkmarked these as approved to pay. And I'm going to drill down to see if I can figure out why. On the comments, notice down here that George Brown had said do not pay the $300 overage. All this is about the payables entry for Clayton. Says the bill for the porch is $300 over budget and the PO. So early on when posting it, I had sent that. Do not pay the $300 overage. And this says the roofers charged $300, and we have let them know. So we've told Clayton that we are going to deduct $300 from that bill they sent us. The trouble is, this amount here is $2,500, which is, I'm just showing you how much you can drill down on, by the way, which is $300 over what we were going to pay them. So we need to post another entry that is minus $300 for this particular PO. If you drill down on the PO that's here, you can see that it was issued for $2,200, not $2,500. So that's what the bookkeeper went ahead and posted the $2,500 from the bill, but did make that note. So what I'm going to do real quickly as the bookkeeper is I'm going to go back and I'm going to post one more thing from scratch to Clayton, job related bill. And I'm going to look at the POs for Smith John. That was for Smith John. And here we see this posted $2,500. We want to go ahead and get this minus $300 attached to that same PO. So I checked it. And it told us that somebody had written some approval notes, and those approval notes were about the $300. We already looked at all of that. So let's do this. Deduct overage on bill. We're just doing that today to take care of it. And we can do, just to be clear on the check stub. So that was 4030. Everything got posted to the right thing. We will submit this. We did a minus $300 and post it as unpaid. Let's close that. Let's jump back to our unpaid payables. Take a quick look at that Clayton. We can do one particular vendor and just look at them, and I wanted to show you that. Now look here. We have minus $300 down here and $2,500. So it's likely that the field would approve that to pay. So would the big boss. We want to be sure that the minus $300 is included here. So I did just want to show you how you could look at Clayton all by itself, and if you were quickly just doing a payment just for them, you could leave this open and write them a check real quickly. But we are going to do a big batch of checks on a window that looks pretty much like this. So let's close this, and we need to save those check marks, by the way. So that we can do them quickly, we still need to save them. We don't want them saving them every time we're check marking them. So let's go back to open all unpaid payables again. So now the big boss has come along and check marked several things. And if you're curious about what the big boss has check marked, we're ignoring a bunch of old stuff that I have here. We're just going to play like we're paying stuff that got check marked here. The big boss can see all the overhead bills, and that here's a bill for the office phone bill, but here's the bill the big boss, James Randall, handed to the bookkeeper in our previous video and said, please split this between me and the business. And so we did, and we are now going to pay AT&T that whole bill, but part of it has been put to owner draws there. So that we demonstrated that earlier. Let's just take a look real quick, searching. Let's just search for all the OK2s, yes, the big boss ones. And let's do a report of the results. We can just kind of take a look that if we just pay those, we'll be paying out $76,000. So let's just say that's what we're doing. I mean, the bookkeeper can go ahead and check mark anything here that they want to include in the check run by just check marking things, like maybe they check mark that one, they check mark that one. Save the check marks. But let's say select groups to pay, and maybe we operate on only doing the ones that the big boss has check marked yes on. You don't have to do this. You can narrow it down, select ones to pay for just certain vendors or just one job or everything due through a certain date, etc. But I'm going to use this feature, select bills to pay based on what the owner has approved. So now you see different check marks, and if you scroll down, you'll see that they're only on the ones that the owner has approved to pay. The owner did not approve our other demo job that's Loveman, not Loveman 2, because we haven't received the draw from that yet. He could tell that on the owner review. So there's all kinds of things, all kinds of drilling down you can do. If you notice that there is a comment, you can drill down on it, sewer service, to see what the difference was, and I know that was because they forgot to budget for sales tax. But you can see how we're using the comments to give information back and forth. The big boss can use the comments bubble and reply to something on the comments bubble. This comment was the one about 300. So we've now selected several to pay, and if we want to print checks, we click print checks. The first thing it's going to do is show you a list of bills that have been selected to pay, in case you just want to see all of those. You can do a report of those in case you forgot to before, to see how much you're going to pay in this check run. But the reason this opened is if all of a sudden you're wanting to print a bill real fast for just one vendor, or just one vendor and the part of it that's for one job, you can make some selections here and filter these out, and then the only checks that will be showing up on a check run will be ones that show up here after you apply the filters. So you do your selections, you submit the filters, and you'll see these narrow down. For example, I'm over here and real quickly I just wanted to pay Clayton. I could do that, submit my filters, and then this is the only check that will show up to pay when I do the check run. But I'm going to reset my filters, get them all back, and I'm happy with that, and I'm going to continue to print checks. So what has happened here on this screen is that the cash account that we're going to print the checks out of, Cash BOA Construction, has dropped in. There's a tip here that says to have the most commonly used cash account drop in when this window opens, go to the Home tab and open your company master, then select a default cash account. Now by having a default drop in, you need to be careful, because if you're suddenly just posting or paying things out of the operating checking or whatever it is, then you would want to change that. We're actually going to just pay everything out of BOA Construction, even though we have some overhead, just because this is a fast demo. So it's today's date, and I'm going to look because I don't know. You would be looking at your next checkup. You get your stack of checks out, and your next checkup to use would be 4603. You make sure of that you're not missing any. And so you type in the beginning check number. There's a tip here about if you are posting a bank debit or payment, you might use a 1 and a period and 6 digits for the date. Also, it's talking about keeping maybe a notebook with your list of checks so you can make sure there are no checks missing, all kinds of stuff for you to look at there. If this has been used before, this check number, CHS, after you put it in and click your tab key, will pop up and say this check number has already been used, so you would be warned about that. The memo to print on all checks that we're printing today will only just print on all checks today in the memo field of the checks. Maybe you're doing a couple of checks and you want to write something on those checks, then you could use that. But I've got everything like I want it. Also, my check style that I set up on the company master, we have some different check styles to choose from, and I recommend ordering Top Check 2 from Dynamic Check Printers right here, so you can see the telephone number and everything else about that, and how to test whether some checks you have fit, and printing them on paper, etc. So there's all sorts of information. There's the order checks again there. So print checks. The next window that you get when you're new to CHS, you really should read every single thing that's here, look at the help, watch the help, but it's saying step 1. Step 1, click this to open PDF of checks to print. And there's a very big warning. Do not close browser, refresh browser, or leave it idle before clicking one of the buttons in step 3. We don't know whether your checks will snag in your printer or whether you'll have a problem, so CHS is not going out and posting those bills as paid or posting the checks out of cash until you click yes, the checks ran okay, so post them as paid. So you don't want to open this up, have your checks just sitting there, print them out, and then go to lunch and then come back and CHS has closed because you left it idle for too long and you did not mark these checks as paid. So they would still be in unpaid payables if you walked away to do that. That's just a very big warning. There's also some help here about what you should do to get your best results for fitting on your check. So let's go ahead and click this, and we will see the PDFs right away, and we can see that there's 10 checks, and if we'd like to look through them all, we can with Top Check and various things. You could print these on paper, hold them up to checks to make sure they'll fit. Your best fit, this is still just handed off basically out on the web. Your best fit is to download these and open these with your own PDF reader. Let's get this bigger. And our biggest warning is that when you click to print those, you got your checks loaded in, however you're supposed to have them loaded in on your printer. We want to make sure that you don't check anything like fit, which would shrink these so that they wouldn't do it. We want you to have actual size. And various printers, this is for my brother printer, will show you different things, or various PDF readers will show you different things. And you need to be very sure that you've got portrait and that you're not letting it do any auto anything or size to fit or whatever kind of thing they might have available for you. You want to do your best to make sure it's actual size at 100%. And then you would click to print. I'm not going to do that because I don't have any real checks, but I'm playing like I just printed them, and they all fit just fine. So since I opened it in my own reader, I need to close my reader and then close the tab that CHS opened. And then I'm going to say, yes, the checks ran okay, so post them as paid, but I'm not going to click that just yet. If you have some checks that have stubs that have so many invoices that they wouldn't fit on the check stub to list them, you can print reports of those invoices that had too many. If you look at your checks, if there's too many for the stub, CHS will print, there are too many for this stub on the check. So if you need, before you leave here, to print reports only for checks with too many invoices for stub, you can click that and CHS will give you that, so it would be like a stub on plain paper for you. But I'm going to say yes, the checks ran okay, so post them as paid. Now notice that it's telling me the resulting cash balance in the BOA construction, and that I could list all checks with same date and cash account, all the ones that I just ran today. I should have checkmarked the BOA to pay. I got too carried away with talking, and I can see that that BOA-Visa was not included in our check run, so it would still be out there to pay. But we did get it posted as unpaid so that we would include it in another check run or realize it today that we didn't pay it. But this will show you a list of all the checks that you just printed. I suggest that you export it to PDF, print it out, and put it in a notebook. I keep a cash notebook myself. It's showing the string of checks and the check numbers, which is handy. And then when I do another check run, I'll put that in. If I do a manual check, I'll usually start handwriting them at the bottom of this printout. It's just a little bookkeeping tip. For internal control, watching what checks, make sure nobody's come in and taken out a couple of checks that seem to be missing, like your next check up should be 4613. Close that, and it says refresh. It made it sort of go blank while I was out there printing checks. And we can see that our BOA, the big boss, is going to go ahead and approve that we might do that in another check run. But you can get an idea of how you're controlling various things. Because you're a real office doing these things, you would do it a lot better than me. Now I'm going to go to the check register that's over there and available, and I'm just going to ask for ones paid today because I want to show you one more thing. Let's see if we can see the one for Clayton. I want to drill down on it. And I'd like to show you that we had our Loveman 2 and Smith John stuff right here. So even though 2 jobs were paid on one check and there could be multiple jobs, CHS is actually going to know how much went to Loveman 2 of this check. We've gone over that before. I showed you that before. And if you do checks for one job and you do Loveman 2, there's Clayton, paid $6,500 today for Loveman 2 on today, and only Clayton for Loveman 2 is showing up in this list. I pointed that out before. That's how CHS can calculate and separate out things by job. I want to point out these pencil edit check marks. Let's say for some reason you told it to start with 4605 by accident. You can use this pencil check mark. You can change the check number to the correct check number, submit the change, and reset. Let's say you posted a manual check and marked it as the check date being some wrong date. You can change the date of the check as long as it's not a date before the invoice is on the check. And let's say you were paying an overhead, but you forgot to change the default checking account. You can change the checking account to the overhead checking account right here if one of these was like that you actually didn't pay them out of the construction. This is only today's checks that I asked to open. You can get a whole big list and use the searching to find whatever check is causing your problem. And if you decide that you want to void one of these checks, what's going to happen when you void a check? Let's just click to do this one. Let's say we wanted to be sure that was paid out of overhead and not out of the construction checking. And you're getting a very good description of what will happen. What CHS will do is void that check, and let's say you've taken it out and you've torn it up because you said, I need to pay the ATT out of the overhead checking or whatever it is. It says, alert, vendor bills paid with check will be marked as unpaid if this check is voided. And it will be in the unpaids list. It's letting you see a list of what will be put back into unpaid. If I click this, it will be automatic to void the check, and then I could go ahead and I could see, if I close this, that this one has been marked 4606 is void and it is changed to 0. There was a button there where we could go straight to the unpaid payables, but I'd like you to see that AT&T is back in unpaid payables now. And perhaps you would select it to pay from your overhead checking instead of the construction checking. But that's what happens when you void a check. Now, if you don't want to ever pay this for whatever reason, that's why you voided it, you can do the X check mark here to delete various bills. It's the same on the big list of unpaid payables. So that's how you would void it and then delete them and then re-enter them or never pay it, or however you're going to do that. I hope that gives you a sense of approving bills to pay, selecting bills to pay, doing a batch of checks, reviewing the checks when you're done, and also reviewing the owner review. I have it open already, but let's refresh it. We paid all the bills for Loveman 2. Notice that it has a 0 now. We still have $25,000 left because if you'll remember in the previous thing, we were getting about $25,000 more than what we were expecting to pay on the next check run for Loveman 2. So I hope all of that helped, and thank you for watching, and go enjoy the rest of your day, and please come back for our next CHS seminar videos. We're not done yet. We're going to have to talk about accounting some. Talk to you later.